Imagine a land where the ancient world is not something you visit in a museum, but something you walk through every single day, where the call to prayer rises over rooftops at dawn, and the souks fill with color and sound, and the smell of spice before the rest of the world has finished its first cup of coffee. Morocco is not just a destination. It is an experience that arrives through every sense simultaneously. The warmth of the sun on rose-colored walls, the sound of a hammer on copper in a workshop no wider than a doorway, the taste of mint tea poured from a height into a small glass and handed to you with both hands as a gesture of welcome that requires no translation. From the labyrinthine Medinas of Marrakech and Fez, to the silence of the Sahara beneath a sky full of stars, from the blue-painted lanes of Chefchaouen hidden in the Rif Mountains, to the Atlantic ramparts of Essaouira, where the wind never stops. Every corner of this kingdom offers something that changes the way you understand the world. A country where the ancient and the living are not two different things, but one continuous thing. Where the lane you are walking was walked 1,000 years before you and will be walked 1,000 years after. This is not just travel. This is immersion. This is wonder. This is your journey through the unforgettable beauty of Morocco. Marrakech. Our journey begins in Marrakech, a city that announces itself through color before anything else. The walls of the Medina are built from local red-pink sandstone that gives the city its name, the Red City, and in the late afternoon light, those walls deepen to something approaching burnt sienna, the shadows stretching long and blue across the dust, the whole city seeming to glow from within like an ember that has been burning for 900 years. The rooftops of Marrakech at that hour, with the minarets rising above the Medina in every direction and the Atlas Mountains visible on the southern horizon, give the city its fullest sense of what it is: ancient, warm, alive, and entirely on its own terms. At the heart of the Medina lies Djemaa el-Fna, the great square that UNESCO has recognized as a living cultural heritage of humanity, and not without reason. In the morning it is almost quiet. The orange juice vendors arranging pyramids of fruit in the early light, a few musicians warming up at the edge of the open space. By afternoon the square begins to fill. By nightfall it has become one of the most extraordinary scenes of sustained human performance anywhere in the world. Storytellers speaking to rapt circles of listeners, musicians in blue robes playing instruments whose rhythms carry traditions brought across the Sahara centuries ago, food stalls materializing from nowhere as the smoke rises from 100 grills into a sky turning from rose to purple to black. Standing at the edge of Djemaa el-Fna at 10 at night, with the smoke and the sound and the light and the movement filling every direction, is to feel the full weight of what a public square can be when a city uses it every day, and has been doing so for 1,000 years. The souks extend north from the square in a dense, branching network where each trade occupies its own quarter. The spice souk opens its sacks of cumin and turmeric and ras el hanout to the air, the colors arranged in cones of ochre and rust in deep red. The leather souk carries its warm animal smell and its hanging slippers in every color. The lantern makers, the woodworkers turning cedar on hand, lathes in tiny workshops fragrant with the sweetness of Moroccan cedar, the carpet sellers, the brass workers hammering geometric patterns into trays with the patient repetition of craftsmen who are thinking about something other than what their hands are doing. The souks of Marrakech are an entire economy arranged as a labyrinth, and to enter them is to accept immediately that you will be lost. This is not a problem. It is the experience itself. Every wrong turn produces a correct discovery. The riads of Marrakech are the domestic version of that same principle. The street outside presents a blank, whitewashed wall, a low wooden door, nothing that announces what is behind it. Pass through that door and find a courtyard of orange trees and roses, of tile work and carved plaster, and the sound of a fountain, of a sky framed by the roofline above that seems more blue for the walls that contain it. The riad is a philosophy of privacy and interior abundance, a domestic architecture that has been refining its logic for centuries, and that the Medina of Marrakech holds in its most complete surviving form. Fez. Four hours northeast of Marrakech, Fez is the city that time has most thoroughly refused to release. The Medina of Fez el-Bali, Old Fez, was founded in the 9th century and has been accumulating its layers ever since, each century adding to what the previous one left without clearing it away first. Walking into the Bab Bo Jalaud, the main gate of the Medina, its blue-tiled exterior and green-tiled interior, marking the threshold between the modern city outside and the medieval city within, is to cross a boundary that has genuine weight. The streets on the other side are the same streets they have always been. The trades in the workshops are the same trades. The donkeys carrying freight through lanes too narrow for any vehicle are not a heritage feature. They are the practical solution to an infrastructure problem that has not changed in 800 years. The Chouara Tannery is the site that most visitors to Fez carry with them longest after leaving. Visible from the terraces of the leather shops that surround it, the tannery reveals itself as an enormous grid of round stone vats filled with natural dyes: saffron yellow, indigo blue, poppy red, mint green, and the white of the pigeon dung used to soften the hides before dyeing. Workers stand inside the vats, treading the leather with their legs stained to the knee, in a process that has not changed in its essentials since the 11th century. No machinery. The smell is remarkable and the sight is remarkable, and the combination of the two, standing on the terrace above with the full grid visible below and the Medina rooftops extending behind it, is one of the most arresting single images available anywhere in Morocco. The Bu Inania Madrasa, built by the Marinid sultans in the 14th century, is the architectural masterpiece of Fez and one of the finest examples of Moroccan religious architecture in existence. Its interior builds from geometric zeliga tilework at the base, through carved stucco above it to cedar mashrabiyah screens at the upper level, all arranged around a courtyard where a water channel runs through the marble floor, and a clock tower, the only one ever attached to a Moroccan madrasa, projects above the roofline outside. Looking upward from the courtyard, the layers of ornament rise through three distinct materials to the open sky above, in a sequence so precisely resolved that the eye follows it from tile to plaster to wood to blue without hesitation, as though the building has been teaching this movement to visitors for 600 years. The rooftops of Fez at dusk are where the city reveals its true scale. The Medina spreads in every direction below, the minarets of its 350 mosques rising above the roofline at intervals, the calls to prayer beginning in one and taken up by the next and the next until the sound surrounds the city entirely, the swallows moving in fast, low circles through the fading light above the lanes. From the Borj Nord above the Medina, the full extent of Fez El Bali is visible as a continuous mass of organic urban form. No grid, no plan visible from above, just the accumulated intelligence of a city that grew according to its own logic across 12 centuries and produced, in that growth, one of the most extraordinary urban landscapes on Earth. The Sahara. South of the Atlas, the landscape empties with a finality that no other landscape transition in Morocco prepares you for. The towns thin out, the road straightens, the colors of the earth shift through terracotta to amber, to the deep rust of the pre-desert plain, and then the dunes of Chebbi appear at the horizon, rising from the flat Hamada in waves of red sand that reach 150 meters at their highest point, their ridges sharp against the sky in the clear air of the desert. At the base of the dunes, the silence is physical, not the absence of sound, but the presence of something else. A stillness that the desert generates from its own immensity, from the distance between where you are standing and the nearest human sound, from the quality of air that has not carried traffic or industry or conversation for a very long time. The dunes hold the silence and add their own contribution to it. The faint sound of sand moving along the ridge in the lightest wind, audible only because nothing else is audible. The light changes the dunes continuously. The rust red of midday becomes deep orange by late afternoon, becomes crimson as the sun approaches the western horizon, becomes purple and shadow as it sets. And then the stars begin, slowly at first, one by one in the deep blue above the eastern dunes, and then faster. And then all at once the full desert sky is present above you in numbers that the city never permits. The Milky Way is not an abstraction here. It is a structural presence in the night sky, a band of light dense enough to cast a faint shadow on the sand. The individual stars too numerous to separate into the constellations that reduce them to something manageable. Lying on the warm sand of the dune with that sky above and the silence around is one of the experiences that travel occasionally produces and that no amount of preparation makes ordinary. The camel caravan at dawn, the animals moving in single file along the base of the dunes, their silhouettes against the first light, their footprints the only marks on the undisturbed surface of the morning sand, is an image that no familiarity diminishes. Some things are the way they are because they are exactly right, and the camel against the desert dawn is one of them. The Atlas Mountains. Between the imperial cities of the north and the desert of the south, the high Atlas rises in a wall of stone that marks one of the great geographical and cultural boundaries of North Africa. The Tizi Ntichka Pass carries the road to its highest point at over 2,000 meters through a landscape of dramatic beauty. Switchbacks over gorges, Berber villages of mud brick clinging to slopes that seem to refuse the idea of habitation, the snow visible on the highest peaks through most of the year. The valley below opening to views that on clear days reach south toward the pre-Saharan plain. The Berber villages of the High Atlas are built from the same earth that surrounds them. Their flat-roofed houses and kasbahs the color of the rock they rest on, so integrated into the landscape that at distance they appear not as buildings, but as outgrowths of the terrain itself. Closer, the carved wooden window frames and the decorated doorways and the sound of water running through the irrigation channels that feed the terraced fields reveal the precision and the care that has gone into every detail of their making. These are not picturesque villages preserved for tourism. They are working agricultural communities whose relationship to this specific piece of mountain has been developing and refining itself for generations. Aït Benhaddou, the great czar of mud brick towers rising from the Unala Valley on the southern side of the Atlas Passes, is the most visually spectacular of the pre-Saharan fortified villages. Its towers and walls and granaries, all built from the red earth of the valley floor, rise from a low rocky hill above a dry riverbed in a composition so naturally dramatic that the camera finds its angles without searching for them. The light on Aït Benhaddou at sunrise, when the towers catch the first horizontal light from the east and the shadows fall long behind them across the valley, is the image of the Atlas South that the eye wants to keep and that the memory holds most accurately. Chefchaouen. In the Rif Mountains of northern Morocco, a city exists that seems to have been conceived around a single decision: that blue in every shade and variation it contains would be sufficient aesthetic program for an entire hillside town. Walking into the Medina of Chefchaouen is to discover that the decision was correct. The lanes are blue, The stairways are blue, the arched doorways, the low walls bordering the upper streets, the plant pots on the window ledges, the stones of the fountain in the central square, blue of every shade, the color varying street by street from sky blue to cornflower, to cobalt to the deep indigo of a clear winter night. Never the same twice, always coherent. Moving through the Medina is moving through a sustained visual experience that has no equivalent in any other city in Morocco or beyond it. Color not as decoration, but as the organizing principle of an entire built environment. From the hillside above the Medina, looking down at the tiled rooftops and the blue lanes winding between them and the green mountains of the Rif rising behind, Chefchaouen reads as a single composition, a place that has arranged itself with the unconscious confidence of somewhere that has never needed to be anything other than what it is. The camera above the city finds the image immediately. The person walking through the city finds something more patient and more layered. The cat sleeping on the blue step, the old man watching the lane from the doorway, the light on the fountain in the Plaza Uta el Hammam in the middle of the morning when the square is quiet and the mountains above are clear. Chefchaouen is where Morocco breathes. After the intensity of Marrakech and the density of Fez, the Blue City offers something that those cities, for all their extraordinary qualities, cannot. A quietness, a particular color, a pace that settles into the body within hours of arrival and makes the idea of leaving feel, for a while, like a mistake. Essaouira. On the Atlantic coast, 3 hours west of Marrakech, the wind off the ocean is a permanent fact of life in Essaouira, a constant, salt-laden pressure that has shaped the city's architecture, its character, and the daily rhythm of everyone who lives in it. The buildings of the Medina are thick-walled and low. The lanes are oriented to channel the wind rather than resist it. The blue and white fishing boats in the harbor are built to handle a sea that is rarely still. The seaward ramparts of Essaouira are the defining structure of the city. The fortified walls extending along the coastline, their cannons still pointing toward the Atlantic from the bastions above the rocks. From the main bastion at the western point, the view is one of the most dramatic in Morocco. The ocean stretching to the horizon in every direction, the blue-hulled fishing fleet moving in the harbor below, the spray rising from the point where the Atlantic meets the stone, the minarets of the Medina visible above the rampart wall behind. At sunset, the light catches the spray, and turns it briefly gold before the sun goes below the water. And the city behind the walls goes from warm to cool in the space of a few minutes. The Medina of Essaouira is smaller and more open than Marrakech or Fez. Its whitewashed walls and its ocean light giving the lanes a brightness that the inland cities do not have. The craftsmen who work through your route in the workshops of the Medina, the fragrant, densely figured timber of the Atlas thuya tree, worked into bowls and boxes and inlaid panels, produce objects specific to this coast in this material that carry in their grain and their scent, the particular character of a city that has always understood itself as a meeting place between the continent behind it and the ocean in front. The harbor at the end of the afternoon, the boats returning in sequence, the ketch unloaded onto the docks and moved immediately to the fish stalls at the harbor edge. The smell of grilling fish and cumin and wood smoke is where Essaouira is most itself. A working Atlantic port that has been working in exactly this way, in exactly this place, for longer than most cities have existed. Moroccan food. The Moroccan table is built for time. The tagine arrives slowly, the clay pot carrying in its rising steam the hours of cooking that went into what it contains. Lamb with preserved lemon and olives, chicken with saffron and honey. The slow heat has done something to the meat and the aromatics that no faster method replicates. A tenderness and a depth that arrives only through patience. The preserved lemon, the saffron from the high Atlas, the argan oil from the southwestern groves. These are the flavors of a specific landscape, and eating them is a way of tasting the country that produced them. The mint tea seals every meal and every meeting, poured from a height, the froth rising in the small glass, offered with both hands. In Morocco, the tea is never just a drink. It is the gesture that says the time is yours. Stay as long as you need. That invitation in this country is always genuine. Morocco is not just a country you visit. It is a country that stays inside you. In the color of the Marrakech walls at dusk, in the sound of the Fez Medina at prayer time rising from the rooftops in every direction, in the silence of the Sahara at 3 in the morning, when the stars are so dense the sky loses its color to them, in the blue of a Chefchaouen lane catching the morning light, in the warmth of a glass of mint tea pressed into your hands before you have finished arriving. Every part of Morocco gives you something that you did not know you were looking for until you found it. Morocco reminds us that the most extraordinary journeys are not the ones that take you somewhere comfortable. They are the ones that take you somewhere real, where the world is older and richer and stranger and more generous than anything you arrived expecting, and where that strangeness becomes, before you leave, something that feels like home. If this journey moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because the world is full of wonders, and your next adventure is already waiting to begin.